This video is the morning routine that I do every morning. I was requested to video it so it could be seen, and in particular the exercises that you'll see, the movements that you'll see, are designed to reinforce one particular exercise, which is the core brace or upward tensing practice. To stabilize the core, you have to put weight-bearing pressure against the core to bring strength to it. So all the movements that are seen in this video are the movements of weight-bearing while the core brace is engaged. So you'll be able to see the specific core brace in the video as we go. And the exercises start with the cardio. I use a small trampoline because the trampoline is a way of moving the lymphatic system much faster. You're seeing some standard jumping jacks. I usually do between 15 to 25 of these in order to get the body moving. You'll notice that the hands are loose, everything is loose, the body is lined up to vertical gravity, and the jogging in place right now is still within the vertical plane. The eyes and jaw remain loose and the face is loose. During these all these particular cardio exercises and throughout the three-part practice of conductivity, the feeling of all-pervading life, which is relaxed in the frontal line, and likewise the breath is breathing all-pervading life as well. So on the tramp you can see some various loosening exercises to get the lymph all the way down to the end, and that's the end there. The bend-overs are very straightforward. They help to mobilize the lower back and continue on with some, this is fundamentally some of the cardio. And after this cardio work, the body has sufficient movement of its fluids and its sort of preparation in order to establish the core. And the body is in a lying down position. Again, the core exercises are done simulating a vertical plane, so when the strengthening of the core takes place, the spine is lined up to vertical gravity by virtue of the plane of lying down. This is different than other core exercises like the plank in various ways, and just the frontal sit-ups. We'll be exercising or establishing the core in a 360-degree barrel. Now the core is the area of the body below the ribs, does not include the ribs, all the way down to the anus, the sphincter muscle, and the buttocks. And if you were to take your legs off at the hip joint, you would have a barrel below the ribs down to the buttocks, all the way around. That's the core. And to establish a tensing of the core, or a bracing of the core, it's fundamental that that repetition of bracing the core happen while the spine is lined up to vertical gravity and or the vertical plane. As Adi Da points out, the natural position for the body is the spine lined to the vertical axis and the top of the pelvic bowl lined up to the horizontal axis. And so you can see in this video, when lying down on the ground, the spine is lined up as a vertical axis place, and you can see the top of the pelvic is pretty much lined up to the horizontal plane. Now this is what's called wiggle rocking. The wiggle rocking is to establish loosening, and loosening is just as important as strengthening and tonifying. So in the process of establishing repetitions of exercise or repetitions of strengthening, you want to also establish repetitions of loosening. And so you'll see that in this video the wiggle rocking is done as an alternate to each one of the tonifying exercises, strengthening exercises. The wiggle rocking starts as a process where you're kind of wiggling the hips side to side like you're trying to wiggle a tail, but it also intentionally wiggles the head, and you want to sort of like have a snake movement and simulate that while you're letting everything relax completely with an easeful breath, loose eyes, loose jaw. And usually once there's enough repetitions, the wiggle rocking can be done for a cycle of one full inhalation and exhalation, and that's enough to then transition. The next movement is to side rotate to open up the sides as well. And then what you'll see next will be the head being loosened up, or the neck being loosened up by lifting up into a bridge, and there's a stretch of the neck, and then loosening up the head so that it remains very, very loose. The next exercise will be the establishment of the core brace, and you should look down at the pelvic area and you'll see that the lower back will be flattened against the mat. That's done by squeezing the sphincter muscle of the anus and drawing it up toward the chin, and then having the pubic bone be drawn in toward the body, and that flattens the lower back. And at the same time that that happens, you will push down from the diaphragm, and as if you're trying to poop, and then the pressures from the sphincter going up and the pubic bone going in and the pressures from the diaphragm going down establish a brace, a core brace that is activated 360 degrees around. That push will essentially balloon the core, and that's exactly what you want. The body should feel that there is a very strong 360 degree top and bottom brace of that entire core area. You want to allow the upper body, the shoulder blades, the neck and the head and the face to remain loose. You want to isolate the core brace so that its capability is not dependent on the muscles above. Likewise, in establishing a core brace, you don't want to repeat any tensions going into the upper body, so that whenever the body adapts to a core brace in any of its natural cycles through the day, it won't automatically tense up the upper body as well. It doesn't need to be tensed up. So you can see that there's a drawing up of the core, and it establishes itself. That is the primary exercise of this entire video. That's what's being developed within the cycle of the entire exercise routine. The challenge to that core brace to strengthen it further are all the different movements. You can see that I have 5-pound ankle weights developed there, because the development of the core at first starts by the leg movements and challenge the lower parts of the core most dominantly, but it actually is, once you practice it, you'll see that it actually does engage the whole core, because you're holding a core brace while you're doing that, and so the whole core is engaged. But by using the legs, it allows the spine to remain aligned to the vertical axis, and the process of strengthening takes place much easier in that fashion, especially in allowing the upper body, shoulder blades, shoulders, neck, and head to remain loose and relaxed. You can see that core brace, and then they'll start to be leg lifts like that. These are alternate leg lifts, and You can notice that the upper body, the hands, the arms, the face is remaining loose. Those are two different kinds of leg lifts. One's pulling the knee to the chest, the first one, and this one is lifting those legs. And then notice that the brace is released at the end. You don't release the brace until you're completely done. There's the wiggle rocking in between to establish loosening after the strengthening exercise. The next one, establish the core brace, lift both knees up, and it's a double knee lift. And this one pulls the knees toward the chin, and then the next one will lift the legs up and up, adding more challenge to that core brace. There's the wiggle rocking to loosen it up very briefly. And then the next exercise is to establish the rotational strengthening. You're pulling the legs up into a U shape, naturally rotates the body, and allows to what's called the obliques and the transverse abdominis to be engaged in a very strong way as well. The entire time the core brace is pulsed and held, and then wiggle rocking loose again. Done every day, year after year, the repetitions get into the tens of thousands and the body becomes adapted to this. These are the standard sit-ups next, but you'll notice that I'm not using the arms to throw myself up. Just let the arms release back and challenge the core a little bit more. The ankle weights makes it a little easier to do sit-ups. And again, with the repetitions here, you can do 5s, 7s, 10s, 15s, 20s. For the purpose of the video, I'm pretty much sticking to 5s and 7s. But after each one, you can see the wiggle rocking, loosening it up. This is on a air ball called a Roman chair, exercising the lower back in a very safe manner. It lifts it up into a straight and makes it easy to do. The back side of the core is just as important, and you'll see now it's going to lift the legs backwards, getting the hamstrings and the buttocks muscles up like that. Again, this is the core brace is established while I'm doing this, and this exercises the back side of the buttocks and the lower back. And in this position, wiggle rocking everything loose. The next exercise is on the side. These are side lifts into a sit-up position, and you notice the arm helps out, but here's one without any arm, so it's just using the muscles of the transverse and obliques to sit up like that. Oftentimes used every day, and these are adductor lifts, getting that inside thigh muscle, and then these are abductor lifts, getting the sides outside of the muscles. This routine pretty much works most all of the muscles of the core down to the knees, and you'll see the upper body will be worked also. This gives a backside view of the sit-up. If you need to use your arm to push up a little bit, that's fine in the beginning, but eventually the side muscles will allow the body to be strong enough to lift itself. The core brace is held during this entire time. It's stimulated as a pulse on each sit-up. Same with the lifts, core brace and then lift. So you're challenging the core on these lifts. That's the fundamental. These are fingertip push-ups. This is somewhat like a plank holding the core, and the fingertip push-up gives strength all the way down to through the fingertips rather than just to the wrist. And this is another form of the fingertip push-up, going back like that. And then loosen it up. It was a hot day. And a moment of rest. Let everything relax for a minute before the next series gets started. This'll, while the core is braced, this is going to exercise the upper limbs. This gets the front deltoids up at the shoulder, starting with the bigger muscles first, working the shoulder muscles. You'll see that I have weights on the wrist, allowing for about an 18 to 20 pound lift on those. This is a 45-degree angle on the deltoids, which are the shoulder muscles. You'll notice that I'm bending down in order to, like I'm picking something up and lifting it up. So I'm trying to simulate how I would use the weights in real life. Again, the core is braced during these as a pulse. It can't be held during the entire time. These are more side, very much to the side, deltoid lifts, called lateral deltoid lifts. Switching to both sides, doing both sides. It's possible to do both at the same time if you want to, but I do them one at a time because that's how I usually pick things up. Next series, establish the core brace and do some bicep. You'll notice I'm bending my knees like that because it helps establish strength in the core. If I'm going down to pick something up, I usually bend my knees, so I'm simulating that same motion. These are squats, and I'm doing them in the most safe manner, putting a ball to the mid part, lower part of the back, and bending down to just about parallel knee and hip. You'll notice it simulates the vertical nature of the back, so it maintains strengthening of the thigh muscles, the front thigh muscles, while the back is related in a strengthening fashion. These are just ways of loosening up the arms after doing the arm work up there in the previous exercises. And naturally I'm throwing my hands around, the neck around, trying to keep everything loose, the face is loosed. And off and on I'll probably do 20 or 30 of those each time. These are a little bit lighter weights with the wrist like this, and it's going to demonstrate a rotational exercise where it pulls up in the bicep, down and twist it all the way around, and then over with the palm up, the other bicep, twist it, pull it up, bring it over, swing around and do another bicep curl. This puts weight in the core while you're twisting. You've got your weight extended and the core is holding, and you're doing various kinds of weighted work, establishing the core strength while you're doing that. Rotational weightlifting is most often forgotten within routines, but it's critical because it's part of daily life. I use the trampoline to loosen up again. It floods the lymphatic fluids through the capillary, through the ends of the fingertips and down. It flushes the blood. It stimulates the nerves. It loosens up the muscles, and the recovery time, instead of having minutes of recovery time for weightlifting, you can jump on this for about 15 to 30 seconds and have complete recovery time. This is the form of tricep lift that I do. It affords the simplicity of isolating the triceps a little bit more, and also has some overhead strength building as well. The core is braced during these things, you probably notice it, and then these simple kinds of lifts likewise strengthen the core. Also strengthens the arms, and there's different positions from which you can do the arms are braced up against the side of the door, and I'm stretching the pecs like this. The pecs are getting stretched. The body remains still fairly vertical, I have a hang bar. Now I'm hanging and stretching out the shoulder blade muscles, twisting a little bit, remaining the face remaining loose, the breath at ease. These are the simple, another form of squats, because when a person goes down to pick something up off the ground, you can simulate the spine remains vertical and the legs get developed. You see the 90-degree angles that are established, and you can simply go down very easily and back up very easily. For people who do go down and pick stuff up off the ground, instead of bending forward with potential back injury, you can simply go down easily and have the back remain in its most natural vertical position like that. These are a form of lunge that are designed to maintain the vertical nature of the back, particularly useful for people with back injuries who shouldn't be leaning forward and loading the entire weight of the upper body onto their lower back. This allows them to remain at ease. And with weights in the arm, establish the core, do leg lifts with the ankle weights there, basic like high step type lifts, and it establishes a balance on one leg. Now, after doing weight work, like I say, I usually will flood the body with its shaking and its movements in order to establish ease. These are larger weights. These are 45-pound weights. Like if I'm going to be lifting heavier weights, I want to develop the body's capability to lift heavier weights. So in each 45, this is a total of about 90 pounds being lifted. It's to train the body's capability to do this and have enough strength, develop the core to lift this kind of a weight. In my daily life, I am lifting weights of this nature most every day, and so I simulate that every day. And after lifting a weight like that, I want to loosen up, get the muscles to recover real quick. Jumping on a tramp, you can just sort of bounce or do some easy jogging after you do weight work like that. Much quicker recovery times for muscles because it floods the blood and the lymph and the nerve real quickly. This is a classic dead pose. Let everything come to rest. And many people will exercise and then they'll just walk away. In the annals of yoga and various other kinds of weight work, people who know will do the dead pose in order to let everything come to rest, let the entire body relax, breathe really fully, and that's it.